Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I've got no rhythm, and today I'm going to do a book review of a new book, a book that is so new that I think it's only being published in the UK tomorrow, the 2nd of May, and then only in the US a month from now. A book that I did not buy, a book that I was sent, very kindly sent, it tells me on the back here, by Alison Davis at Penguin Random House. I didn't request this. This is an arc of Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. I don't think I requested. I'm not usually on mailing lists for these things. I've occasionally reached out to publishers about specific books and not always, rarely been successful, but I don't ask that much. But somehow my mum called me and said, "Oh, book's arrived." I said, "Which book is it?" She said, "It's Enlightenment by Sarah Perry." I said, "Oh, I've read Sarah Perry. I read The Essex Serpent a few years ago. I didn't read her follow-up book, Melmoth, but I really liked The Essex Serpent. I thought it was really a special book, and kind and gentle, and people were shown in positive lights and behaved like human beings towards other people. A sort of slightly a Victorian novel, I believe, set in Essex like 120 years ago, and really good. But I didn't read the follow-up book, and I think it's short stories. There's some non-fiction called Essex Girls, which I hadn't read. But my mum called and said, "Oh, this book's arrived." And I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." She's come out to visit, and she brought it with her. And this is my arc. You see, that's the cover, just so you can see that on the back cover there's her name and some details of the number for the press office and what the ISBN is going to be. And the front cover of the arc doesn't even have the title on it. Just has a quote from was it? Oh, it's not. The quote on the back is from Sarah Waters. The quote in the front, I think, is from the book. It's by Kepler, actually, which is germane. Anyway, the book is called Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. I just read it over the weekend. It's out in hardback this week if you're in the UK, and another month if you want to pre-order it in the US. Really wonderful. Really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't have picked this up if I hadn't been sent a copy. So thank you very much to Alison Davies. Who is, for publicity inquiries, contact her. Thank you for sending this to me because I just thought it was very special and gentle and wonderful. It's a contemporary book, so I actually said over 3 periods. We start in 1997 and then we jump forward to 2007 and finish up in 2017. I think I've got that right. Something like that. So it's over 20 years the whole thing takes place, but in each part of the story takes place in that time period, and then we jump forward and see what's happened to our characters. It's a book about faith and a part of a Christian religion that I know very little about. These are very strict and peculiar Baptists. Okay, I never do this, and I'm popping up here because I may have caused offence. Not strict and peculiar Baptists, strict and particular Baptists. That is a possibly Freudian slip, and I apologise. Back to normal programming. A church in Essex that some of the characters belong to. One in particular, our main character, is a fine gentleman he starts off in his 50s, so we move forward with him 20 years as a very refined, smart gentleman, and the way he dresses is described, and he's always seen in a sort of very positive and very self-contained light. A man called Thomas Hart, who appears weekly in his pew at this little Baptist church that they belong to, and he's also a journalist, and he also has another life. He often goes to London, where he talks about his life being split into two. So on the one hand, he's part of this strict Baptist congregation. On the other hand, he's a gay man in London in the late 90s and trying to reconcile these two aspects of his life. And certainly back in Essex, back in his hometown, back within his congregation, he's very much closeted. But we see him over time, how he wrestles with his faith, how he reconciles his desires, his love, the positive aspects, what he believes must be something positive in his nature, that wants to love, that seeks love, and latches on and loves other human beings. How to reconcile the religiously forbidden aspects of that with his faith in God and faith in humanity, and quite beautifully told. And early on, as I don't know if I said, he's a journalist. He writes for a local Essex newspaper. He's had a couple of novels published to no great success. And early on, his editor says to him, there's something going on. There's a comet in the sky, or there's going to be an eclipse, or whatever it is. And says, look up to the heavens. Open up your world, Thomas, and go and write about this. Give me 500 words or 600 if the skies are clear. Which is a lovely expression that drives him. It comes up time and again. This idea is, give me 500 words or 600 if the skies are clear. And he goes away and looks up for the first time and encounters the moon and the stars and the heavens, and becomes enamored of it, and starts to write about that in a philosophical way, and relate it to his life. There are other characters in the book also, so other members of the church, including a young girl who he has known since she was a baby, whose mother died in childbirth and has been brought up very strictly. And at the beginning of the book is a child of 17 turning 18, Grace Macaulay, and her father, who is a very strict and very devout man, but fallen, seems to be a good man. Often there's that trope of the very religious actually being rather rotten in their dealings with other human beings, however devout they may be, and straightforward in their faith towards the heavens or God, or whatever version of God they believe in. There's a terrible literary trope that they happen to be bad people, this is not the case here. The people of faith, their faith supports them and is a strength for them, but they must also find ways to navigate the rest of the world, and the people who navigate the rest of the world need to find room in their hearts for people of faith, and a lot of that is going on. It's just gentle, it's beautifully written. At some points at the beginning, I felt it was a little overwritten, a lot of nature writing, and very dependent and very of its place. That's something I'll talk about in a second. But a lot of the trees and the weather and the dew and the snowdrops and the rain and the mulch and it's all alive. The nature around them in Essex, which is I guess east of London. I grew up in Greater London. Even if I'm in the suburbs, in the northwest suburbs, Essex is further down the Thames, out towards the English Channel, and all around there. Not an area I know very well, not an area I sort of ever really visited growing up. But this is very much of its place. In I think by now, this is the second or third, or at least. Well, the Essex Serpent is clearly in Essex, and she wrote non-fiction called Essex Girls. Melmoth, I'm not sure because I didn't read whether that's set in Essex, but it seems that Sarah Perry is becoming to Essex what, not what Thomas Hardy was to Wessex, which was a made-up place. Essex is a real place. Becoming to Essex what, say, Anne Tyler is to Beaumont, or other writers who their entire oeuvre is very much grounded in the psychogeography of a specific place where they grew up, which has a history, a rich history going back hundreds of years. And I keep referring to the Essex Serpent because there is a very real connection between what happened in the Essex Serpent in the late 19th century and what is being uncovered here, because throughout the time periods in this book, 1997 and 2007 and 2017, there are references back to Victorian times and a person who lived and looked at the stars back then, and was lost, is forgotten to history. And part of Thomas Hart's journey is to try and uncover what happened to this woman. Why has everyone forgotten her? And what was the mystery? And what did she discover? And what was she looking at? And there was a statue of her that's gone missing. And it seems that she had, people remember the statue, she was holding maybe a rifle, some kind of weapon. And it turns out not to be a rifle, but a telescope. And so she too, 100 years previously, was concerned with the heavens and the stars and the comets, and the nature of comets. And we have Halley-Bopp and Halley's Comet are mentioned here. The nature of these things is that they recur, that they appear and they fix a moment in time, and they complete some journey where they reach their peak and then move away, but eventually come back into orbit and come back and reach that peak again, and could be over years, decades even, or longer. And that's a recurring theme, that the way human beings also move in and out of each other's orbits, and may recede for many years, but then come back and prove to be significant. I'm not sure I'm doing this justice. If you read The Essex Serpent, you absolutely have to read Enlightenment. I don't think you have to have read The Essex Serpent to enjoy Enlightenment, because it is a work of refined gorgeousness about the goodness of people, or at least the striving for goodness of people. And it's something that's very much spoken about. There's a question of, do people be happy? Should people strive for happiness? Should they strive for goodness? What do any of these concepts mean? Is it enough to be content? Is it enough to have purpose? Is it enough to want to be good? And without, it doesn't ever get dragged down by these questions. They're what fuel and drive the inhabitants of this novel, and seem to be of interest also to its author. I really, really loved Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. I'm unable to predict whether this is going to become one of the big novels of the year, or whether Booker will take an interest in it. I don't know. I'm not good at those kind of things. But if you have a love of literature, English literature, first of all, literature set in England, really embedded in England. I think of Lanny by Max Porter had that sort of same earthy sense of place. Not similar in any particular way, and this is far less interested in the supernatural, although the modern day people in this book are tied to visions of the past and the inhabitants of the past, but not. I don't think it's meant in a real spiritual manifestation, but there is a sense of living and sharing and the recurringness in the wake. Really wonderful. I really enjoyed Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. I highly recommend it. If you find it, as I say, pick up. It's only out now in hardback, so I feel like I'm way ahead of the curve, which is unusual for me. But I love this very strongly. It gets one of my highest recommendations. Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. Take care. God bless. Bye.